All right, let's bring back Claire DeLune, friend of the Daily Delivery program. She's been on a few times. Hi, Claire. How are you
Hey,
doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. The occasion this time, of course, is you cover the Lakers for The Guardian. You've written extensively about them, about LeBron, about everything going on with this team. You also have, obviously, Minnesota ties. You're from here, musician, all of that for people who remember Claire. But we got to talk playoffs because that's,
Yeah.
this is no time to just, this is no time for idle chit chat. This is no time for the regular banter. It's
Yeah.
time. Saturday in LA, Wolves at Lakers. They're only separated by one game ultimately in the standings. Lakers got the 3 seed, Wolves got the 6. The West was just crazy at
So
the
crazy.
end. But I feel like the Lakers landed in a pretty good spot and
Yeah.
gave LeBron at least one more legitimate chance to make a run. What do you
Yep.
what where do you see this from the Lakers standpoint before we get into Wolves stuff? Because we haven't talked since they got Luca.
Yeah. I mean, with all due respect to, to the Timberwolves, because I think it's going to be a tough series for the Lakers. I don't think this will be easy by any means. I would be surprised if it's over in sooner than 6 games, but I think they got the most favorable bracket sort of outcome possible with the standings as bunched up as they were because they got to avoid Golden State in the first round, who I personally think is their worst matchup in the West. And I would include Oklahoma City in that. I think the Warriors are a worse matchup for them than OKC. And that's been borne out by recent games and the results. And then they're also on the other side of the bracket from the Clippers and the Nuggets, who might also be tough for them. If they make it out of this series with the Wolves, then they face either the Rockets or the Warriors in the second round. If the Rockets are able to take care of business against the Warriors, I don't even think they're favored, even though they're the 2 seed.
I
But
know, it's wild.
then theoretically their path to a conference finals could be Wolves Rockets, which I think is about as ideal as it could have ended for them, keeping in mind that the West is a gauntlet and there are no easy paths out.
Wolves, Lakers will be. I think it's just kind of this classic matchup of obviously you have Ant for the Wolves, so you've got the star power there, but
Yep.
the Wolves are predicated on depth and being able to play a few different ways. If
Yep.
something isn't working, they've got a lot of buttons they can push. They can go to different players. Like their first 3 guys off the bench, arguably, are just as good as their bottom 3 starters. Like they have a lot of
Yeah.
depth with obviously with Naz Reid, with Nikhil Alexander Walker, and then with Dante DiVincenzo. Everybody's basically healthy right now. The Lakers, however, have arguably the greatest player of all time, who is still playing at an extremely high level at age 40, and who has got to be ultra motivated
Yeah.
because these chances are going to become more fleeting, even if he plays great until he's 70. Like at some point, something's going to happen. Like he won't be this great forever, we don't think. And then you've got Luca, who eliminated the Wolves last year, who showed them kind of what playoff basketball is all about. So you've got kind of this. It's not all the Lakers have. They have got other good players. They have Austin Reeves. They have other capable scorers, capable defenders. But it's kind of this classic matchup of depth versus this star power. I think we know what usually wins in the playoffs, but it's also, again, not a given because of the matchups and how they could shake out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fair read on the situation. I mean, obviously the Wolves are a deeper team than the Lakers. I don't even think the Lakers would argue that. And like you said, there is top end talent there on the Wolves, and we saw Ant carry a team essentially to the conference finals last year. But I do think Luke is built different. I mean, Wolves fans saw that last
Oh
year.
gosh,
He
yeah.
is as unafraid as Ant is. I would say Luke is equally unafraid. Um, neither of them believe anyone on earth can guard them, and they might both be right, to
In different
varying
ways,
degrees.
yeah, yeah, in different ways, sure.
So I think like not to say that we'll cancel each other out, but like the top end talent is there on both sides if both of those stars show up. I do think LeBron is sort of the difference maker there in the sense of like when you look at the second option, and to even say LeBron is the second option, like I have him, fifth on my MVP ballot this year.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. So like he's a hell of a second option, if not a first option on
Yeah.
some nights. But then you look at that. So I would say the top end of the depth chart, and I would even argue, this might be controversial with this audience, but like it's a real conversation to me between who that, I would say, I guess once you get past those three, who the fourth best player in the series is
Hmm.
and where they play. Because I think there's a really good case for Austin Reeves as sort of,
Yep.
both a scorer and a facilitator, playmaker. Um, so the top end depth, I think it goes a little deeper on the Lakers side. It's when you get past that like fourth, fifth option that then pretty much it's entirely lopsided in favor of the Wolves, I would say. So yeah, it's really interesting. I think role players will have a huge determining factor in this series, and I also think like how much does LeBron look like LeBron? How limited can the Minnesota defense make him? How much can they take him out, take Austin out of the equation? To sort of like even the playing field there and make it more of like a Luka versus Ant series. I think that'll be a huge factor as to who prevails.
I'm curious who is going to guard who in this series. I don't
Yeah,
exactly know
that'll
who's going
be
to be
really
on.
interesting.
I think they'll probably I think the Wolves will probably throw different things at Luca. And one intriguing thing from a Wolves standpoint is they have a lot of good perimeter defenders. Like Ant,
Mhm,
as a star player, is still a very good defensive player, especially when he's locked in and wants it. And he will want it in the playoffs against the Lakers. That is for
for sure.
certain. Jaden McDaniels, obviously. Nikhil Alexander Walker's got some defensive chops, and then they've got Jalen Clark, who they can throw in there and kind of unleash if they choose to in kind of short bursts and make life hard. And he's not only quick, but he's kind of thicker, could maybe give Luca some problems there. So I think they have some things they can throw at Luca. I also thought that last year, and then Luca absolutely destroyed them in the Western Conference. That was one of the reasons I was optimistic about their chances against the Mavericks last year. And then Luca just does that to
Yeah.
him, does it to them when it matters the most.
I personally don't see a huge difference as far as like options to defend Luca from last year's team to this year's team, which is why I kind of think it's going to come down to everybody else. I think Luca will get his. I really don't
Yeah.
see him being super limited by anyone on the Wolves roster. It's more of like, can you limit Austin Reeves? Can you limit LeBron James? Like, can Julius Randle show up on the defensive end because he's really the only person with the size and strength to really give LeBron James any
Yes.
problems on that roster, I think. So I think that's kind of what it'll come down to more. I don't think the Lakers have anyone that I would feel super confident about guarding Ant, and I don't think the Wolves have anyone that I would feel super confident about guarding Luca. So that's sort of why I kind of prefaced it by saying I think those two might cancel each other out in a way if they're
Yeah.
both playing up to their ceilings. It's kind of everybody else. It's going to be up to, the Wolves role players to make open shots. It's going to be up to the Lakers role players to make open shots. And it's going to be up to, LeBron James at 40 to sort of like carry the day sometimes.
I think Rudy Gobert is kind of an interesting X factor in this series because the Lakers have nobody of consequence who's big, right? They play Hachimura at center a lot, right? Or who do they play at center right now?
They start Jackson Hayes. He's
Okay,
his minutes are limited. He has a short leash, I would say.
okay,
JJ starts him and he usually plays about 15 to 20 minutes all
okay.
told. I would say Dorian Finney-Smith ends up being kind of in those center minutes sometimes. Jared Vanderbilt, Wolves fans will be
Andy, oh yeah,
familiar.
I almost forgot about him. Yeah,
But really, the Lakers play small ball a lot.
hmm,
And I think that's why they've had success against teams that can only play big doing that because they they can't keep up with them and the scoring and whatnot. I think in my estimation Rudy's probably going to be less involved in this series because I think the Wolves are probably going to have to play small um to be successful in the series. And I know that people kind of look at it through the alternate side of that prism of like what are the Lakers going to do with Rudy
right.
Gobert? I just don't think Rudy's enough of a scoring threat to make that really consequential. So I would say I would imagine we're going to see a lot more Naz Reid, a lot more Nikhil Alexander Walker, like those guys, the wings of the Wolves lineup. I think will play a more important role than Rudy Gobert in this series, if I had to guess.
It's going to be interesting because they thrive when he's been good. He's been pretty good offensively lately, but offense for him is within 3 feet of the basket. Like it's not
Right,
anywhere
and even
anywhere
sometimes
out,
then.
and sometimes closer. Yeah, sometimes within 11 inches of the basket. Like get closer than a foot. They should. Basketball Reference needs to have a special Rudy Gobert stat that's only like 1 foot away because that's if you get further than that, it's still not that accurate. But he's been really good lately, and defensively, like can he be kind of that? You know, the guy that roams, the guy that's allowed to kind of like get make sure everybody gets out of the paint and stuff like that. But again, I don't know that's necessarily the Lakers game right now. Like that's not really what LeBron and Luka are going to beat them at. It's not going to be drives. It's going to be
Yeah.
it's going to be kicking it. It's going to be finding other people. It's going to be getting to the line, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Lakers surprisingly they've completely changed their identity since the Luka trade, and I think that's why JJ deserves a ton of credit because he really didn't miss a beat in creating basically an entirely new team, new identity, new defensive schemes, etc. And they're a three-point shooting team now, which they
Yeah.
never were in the past. They definitely weren't with the AD iteration of this
Mm-hmm.
lineup, and they're up in the top, I would say 10 consistently, 5 often in 3-point volume since the Luka trade. They've just really switched into a perimeter shooting team. And so that's why I think it's going to be and those guys are making shots to be fair.
Yeah.
Like Dorian Finney-Smith is shooting over 40% from 3. Rui Hachimura is shooting over 40% from 3. So that's why I think if the Wolves are living and dying with Rudy Gobert, they're going to have issues in this series. Unless their role players are scoring so much that that it doesn't really matter what they're doing on it. Like if they can outshoot the Lakers out of the gym, if they can outscore them, but that's a different story. But I just don't really think that that's necessarily the identity of this team. And when they've been at their best, when they've been hitting their
Right.
ceiling, they are leaning on the defensive end.
That's true. And the Wolves will shoot a lot of threes too. There's gonna be a lot of threes. It's gonna be a
I
lot
mean,
of
a lot of
maker.
threes.
There's gonna be a there's this is gonna be a there's gonna be a lot of make or miss games,
Yeah.
and that's gonna be interesting. Let's take a step back before we kind of get into a little bit more of this series. Like you're sitting there, it's NBA trade deadline, and then bam, Luka to the Lakers. It's like everybody is just like shocked. The Lakers were still a good team before that happened. We
Yeah.
forget that. Like, AD was hurt at the time. Then he came back. Then he got hurt again with Dallas. So that was kind of unfortunate. We never really get to see what kind of impact that would have had on the Mavericks. And that's part of the problem in Dallas. They're not taking this too well. But like what, from a Lakers perspective, like just having like you said, having to remake on the fly a completely different player, but B, like the injection of hope and energy, but also like this was a team that was kind of built around two guys, and they still thought they had championship aspirations around those two guys. Like what was that like? How have they made this work? And like just the craziness of being in the middle of that trade.
For sure. I mean, I think there's a lot of revisionist history going on of like, of course the Lakers ended up as the 3 seed. They got Luka midseason. Well, they were
Right.
the 4 seed the night of the trade. They had just beat the Knicks in Madison Square Garden with no Anthony Davis.
Right.
Because AD was already injured. They were on a winning streak. They were, firing on all cylinders. So I think, at first it was I had a moment as someone who covers them closely of being a little bit sad to not be able to
Yeah.
see through that team that got broken up midseason because I do think that there was something special there.
Yeah.
But I didn't in a million years think that this would I was very high on the Luka LeBron fit. I also was very high on Austin Reeves not becoming redundant. I just think they're both such smart basketball players and they're both such great facilitators. Like you can never have too many adept ball handlers. I really
Right.
don't believe that as long as
Sure.
they're unselfish. So I was really high on the fit, but I definitely thought it would take I thought they were basically punting this season and that next season it would look incredible. And I was dead wrong. I mean, it's really a testament to JJ and it's a testament to sort of Luka, LeBron, and Austin as to how fast everything clicked. But the chemistry is incredible for having basically no time to gel at all. And I think, Luka is someone who's really motivated by slights. He's very
Mm-hmm.
emotional, he's very petty, and he
Yes.
loves to talk crap to someone in the front row. And
Yeah.
so they kind of like gift wrapped him in Dallas motivation he didn't even really need. to go just embarrass them with his success on the Lakers. So I think that was, they maybe didn't think that part through. It didn't seems like they didn't think a lot of it through.
No.
And then yeah, to your point, I mean, LeBron he plays different when he believes he has a chance. And that's understandable because, conservation of energy, like
Hmm.
if it doesn't really make sense to give it your all at 40 if you think you're going to get your first round exit. And you're
Right.
seeing the difference of what LeBron's ceiling still can be when he believes that he actually has a shot at it, and he can still be incredible. So that's been really cool to watch. I don't know. I mean, this team, there's a lot of different bonding moments over the course of the season. JJ Redick lost his house in the LA fires.
Right.
The
Yeah.
team kind of rallied around him in that moment. And then Luca obviously got very unceremoniously dumped and sort of trashed in the press. And so the team have really rallied around him. And then there's like the LeBron and Bronny of it all, So
Oh yeah.
there's a lot of storylines this year. There's a lot of sort of morale boosting, like team chemistry boosting adversity moments. And this is the happiest I've seen LeBron since I started, closely covering this team. And this is the best team chemistry I've seen since the 1920 season. So it's been cool.
I was like, wait, 1920. You weren't. I was like, okay, the 2019-2020 season.
Yeah,
God, I was
this
like,
is the best team chemistry I've seen since pre the Great Depression of 1933 or
all
whatever.
right,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Listen, I
Context.
like to be
Listen,
hyperbolic, but not quite that
listen.
hyperbolic.
Context should have told me exactly what you're talking about. It's just my brain went to like, wait, 1920. Like, oh, that's a long.
19/20.
Yes, I know. I get it. I get it. And that was the. I mean, that was the bubble championship team. That was
Yes.
the team that won it all. And now here we are 5 years later. I mean, I still think it's interesting. So the Wolves have been such a weird team this year, and I think like even at the finish here, they went 17-4 in their last 21 games, and I still feel like all anybody wants to talk about was the four they lost. Like people here are still mad about the cat trade. They're still mad that this isn't the same team as it was last year, but it's still a pretty good team. Like
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
know, like I don't think it all came together exactly how they thought it would. Like Rob Dillingham hasn't really given them much as their kind of top first round pick. Like Chris Finch still loves to play as veterans more than anything else. And only when people were injured did we see any glimpses of kind of the new guys. Like, yeah, Jalen Clark has kind of broken into the rotation and probably just because of his defense more than anything. Terrence Shannon Jr. played for a little bit, but only because people were hurt. But like it's still a pretty good year, but it's also a weird year in that it started off poorly, and now I think people are kind of looking at this Lakers series like, oh man, like you couldn't have gotten a worse draw. And they were basically like, what, Golden State making a basket away from being the 5 seed and playing the Nuggets, I think, in the
Which
first
is
round.
the best draw for them,
Yes,
yeah.
that would have been a great draw for them, and they would have been like Nuggets. They would have been in the same bracket as Oklahoma City, but they beat Oklahoma City twice this year too. So like that would
Yeah.
have been a better draw. I think people are like, there's a pessimism about this just because of the draw. I wonder if and how they can use that, or if it just doesn't matter because it's Luka and LeBron. It's going to be a very difficult lift for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think they getting hot at the right time is obviously super important in the NBA, and they definitely got hot at the right time. Like, it doesn't really matter when you get it together as long as you have it together going into the playoffs and you make the playoffs, as long as you didn't biff it bad
Right.
enough in the beginning of the season to miss the playoffs entirely,
Yeah.
which they did not. But it's crazy that it came down to like single game, half game, tiebreakers. Like, it just goes to show the regular season really does matter, in the Western Conference at least. But, I don't think Wolves fans should be pessimistic. I think they absolutely have a chance in this series. And as long as you have Anthony Edwards, you have a chance in any series, but it is going to be incumbent on Ant to play like a superstar and to, I think something we saw from him last year that I think there's been some growth in this department is sort of being jostled and unsettled by double teams and by
Hmm.
having people swarm him and kind of like losing that decision making in those moments. And that's going to be a sign of growth if he's able to, circumvent that in the series. Cause I mean, obviously the Lakers are going to double. So, that'll be interesting to see. I don't think there's really anything to the like, oh, you're going against LeBron. Like, and we saw that he went against his
Hmm.
hero and Kevin Durant and didn't bat an eyelash. So I don't
No.
think he'll have any issues with that. It's more of like the game planning to try and take him out of it, and how he can handle that, and if he can make the right reads in a timely fashion, and if the guys that he's making the reads to can make open shots. I think
Yeah.
those are going to be the things that determine how the Wolves fare in this series. But I don't think
Yeah.
anyone's expecting, nobody in LA, thinks this is going to be a sweep or anything like that. Like,
No.
I think it'll be really competitive and hard fought, and I would be surprised. I would be very surprised if it goes less than, let's say 6 games.
I think that's right. I think if I had to like make a prediction, I don't have to, but if I had to, I'd probably say like it feels like Lakers in 6 is like a safe pick, even though game 6 will be in Minnesota, because you just know veteran team, they don't care where game 6 is, and they don't want
Yeah.
to go, they wouldn't want to go to a game 7 at that point. And there'll be
Right.
pressure on the Wolves at that point. But this will be, you're right, this is a maturity growth series for Ant, not a I don't know, it's not necessarily a legacy series. Like he went to the Western Conference Finals last year, but it is to a certain degree like he's been anointed the guy now. Like he had Cat
Yeah.
last year. He's always had Cat next to him. Randall is not Cat. Randall's a very good player, but he's got
Yeah.
some suspect playoff history, but he's not Cat. He's not a former number 1 pick. He's not a guy who's kind of got that kind of juice throughout the league. So he's been anointed the guy. How does he handle that in the playoffs? And you're right. Can he make the right play? Can he make the mature play? I think it's kind of an indictment or more of a referendum on his maturity in this series more than anything else.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
If you had to make a prediction, I made one. What would you say?
I would also say Lakers in 6.
Yeah.
Again, I'm reticent to say that on this podcast because I know
Well,
my audience here.
I already said it, so you can say it.
I just think I think the Wolves have a good shot, and anything could happen. So I don't want to say like I'm certain that the Lakers are going to win this series, but I just know how much all the guys on the Lakers believe that they can win a championship this year. And if they're faced with the possibility of a first round exit, I just have a hard time believing that LeBron James and Luka Doncic won't just find a way,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, no matter how even it becomes.
Yeah.
I have that same faith in Anthony Edwards. It's more the rest of the supporting cast that I think that gets called into question. But yeah, so if gun to my head, I would say Lakers in 6. I could see it going to a game 7, but to your point, I think they're going to do everything in their power not to do that, just because no one wants to play a single elimination game, as evidenced by how badly everybody was trying to get out of the play-in tournament.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the Wolves had to go 8-1 in their last 9 just to avoid the play-in, and it took
that's so impressive.
down to the very last one, and the one they lost was the one they blew to Milwaukee. Yeah, my pessimism in this series isn't anything necessarily to do with the Wolves. I think I would have probably picked them against Denver, especially with Denver kind of being in disarray.
Yeah.
Probably would have picked them at least to have like a coin flip chance against the Clippers, although the Clippers are playing very well right now. Probably would have even given them a pretty good shot to beat the Rockets, even though the Rockets are the 2 seed. This specific matchup is bad for them in a lot of different ways, and I think that's where this comes in.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Luck of the draw.
Luck of the draw. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Game
I think it's gonna be a
1
great series.
I think it's gonna be a good series too. What's your coverage plan? You get to be you gonna be courtside for games 1 and 2? Where are you gonna be?
My seats aren't courtside, but they're darn close. They're like, I sit, usually at crypto, I sit like about 6 or 7 rows back from courtside is where they have our little press section.
Yep.
So I'll be there for games 1 and 2, and then for the games at Target Center, I really wanted to try and come home because it was a cool excuse to maybe visit my mom, but it doesn't sound like I'm going to make it back. So I think I'll probably be watching at a bar with a beer, ideally.
There's worse things than that too. There's definitely worse things than that too. Well, follow Claire's coverage if you want more of the good Lakers stuff, social media, The Guardian, everything like that. Claire, appreciate it as always. I'm sure we'll see you on social media during the series, and we'll see you again down the road.
Can't wait. See you there.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.